welcome everyone. Today we're going to have a little bit of a practice session. So my thought is, we're talking about keeping our hearts open, especially in times of stress or anxiety. And, holidays with so many things, between an election year and holidays, there's just so many things that can either make people really happy or frankly can, bring up a lot of stress and anxiety. And, the holidays can be, for those who've experienced loss, can be a time of grief, a time of loneliness. And so in the face of all of that, our own perhaps individual suffering, although in some way it's all our individual suffering, when we look at what's happening in the world, and there's strife and there's war and there's chaos, and all of these things can feel really overwhelming. And, there's a natural kind of tendency to close up when things become difficult like that, right? It's like a protection to get smaller and kind of retreat into ourselves. And, in Buddha's teachings, they say compassion is the greatest armor. So actually the greatest strength is being able to open up in the face of all of those things, and keep your good heart and stay connected to that and continue to sort of expand that. Having said that, it's not always easy. Some of the classes that we've done before, I've talked about individual boundaries, and just kind of reiterating that as well. So as we're talking about keeping our hearts open and expanding our hearts, also always remembering to be kind and gentle to ourselves. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And then I'm going to lead 3 meditations. So one will be open awareness. So just what it sounds like, getting in touch with being in our own skin and, bringing awareness to whatever is happening, whatever's coming. And then we will do a loving kindness meditation. And then I thought it would be really nice to close with Tonglen. I think most of you are familiar with that. Just kind of a nice way to wrap it up. So having said that, what I like to do is also just kind of get everyone here with a couple moments of just silence and watching the breath. But before even doing that, I just wanted to pause to kind of check in that plan sounds good to everyone, and just see if there's anything that, okay. But please feel free, especially in between the meditations, to chime in. Maybe sometimes stuff comes up and we can be there to support each other. So before we start, let's just come here. And I don't know about you, but I have a little bit of a cold, and I was running to get coffee and thinking about, okay, what do I want to talk about? So, my mind is a little busy. Nice to kind of get it in neutral before we start. So let's just take a couple of breaths. And maybe bring your awareness to that tip of your nostril where your breath is entering and exiting. And you don't have to have any kind of labored breath or monitoring the length of your breath. Just let it come. And let's try to count 9 breaths without our minds wandering. But if it does wander, just guide your attention back. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I'd like to lead us in a prayer of refuge. And I'll do that first in English and then twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Sangye chodong soki chonam la, jangchu badu dagni kyapsu chi, dagi jinso ki pe sonam ki, drola penchil sangye drupa sho. Sangye chodong soki chonam la, jangchu badu dagni kyapsu chi, dagi chinjian ki pe sonam ki, drola penchil sangye drupa sho. And then I'm going to offer a mandala today. Saji Puki Juxing Meto Tramri Rabling Ji Nide Gyan Padi Sangye Jindu Mite Uwagi Drokun Namdaha Jinla Chopa Shoidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kaneryatayami. So thanks. So now we're here and talking about awareness, open awareness, the first meditation we're going to do. If we think about what it means to be present, it means to be tapped into that awareness. And typically, I don't know about you, but for me, and I think for many, over the course of the day, we're often not present, not in the moment, aware of what's happening. There's a soundtrack of things that have happened in the past, things that I have to do in the future, and especially when we're feeling anxious or stressed. I have a very dear friend and a fellow Dharma student recently going through a crisis, and a very serious one, an ill child, seriously ill child, and just struggling. And aside from empathy and caring, the thing I wanted to remind him of is to collapse down into the present moment. Because in the present moment, everything can be fine. No matter what, it's the projection into the future or the bringing the past into the present moment that creates so much anxiety. And this is something that I really try to practice when I'm feeling myself getting pulled into some kind of difficulty, just to kind of be in the present moment. And in the present moment, we are able to tap into just incredible capacity for loving kindness to ourselves as well as to others. And I know it can be a real challenge, especially not to be pulled into the what ifs or what's happening in the future. But I would challenge everyone, when you're going through something, if you just try to collapse that moment into just that raw awareness of now, coming to now, I think you'll find it's very helpful. I don't know. I would kind of love, this is like a practice day. And before we do a meditation, I would just love if anyone has anything that they kind of wanted to discuss, especially coming in with this topic, if there's something that you have in mind. I'd love for it to be a little more interactive. So I'll just pause. That's what I usually do. Try to pause for a minute. Okay.
Oh no, I'm
Oh,
here.
good, good.
Sorry. Um, One thing that I'm interested in is it seems that this couple of weeks have been difficult for me to concentrate on my practice. So any tools, I could use them.
Yeah. So again, I think sometimes when we talk about loving kindness with ourselves and our practice, it's a regular mantra that I do to myself, and many Dharma brothers and sisters I know like are we're a little hard on ourselves sometimes about our practice. It's not, maybe we're thrown into some chaos, having people in and out, whatever the situation may be. So, in addition to, getting back to your practice, I would recommend obviously that come to the present moment. But I think also just the gentleness with ourselves, the expectations that we have on ourselves, what we're trying to do, I would say, much of the world would think is crazy. Because if ultimately, truly, what we're aiming to do as Buddhist practitioners is to perfect ourselves. In the regular world, that's not even on the table. And where it is, it's some kind of dysfunctional sort of perfection, right? It's not true perfection, right? Which is informed by wisdom, right? The wisdom that understands reality in our situation. So I think, what we're striving for is something that's huge. And so even just contemplating, even just thinking, oh, my practice is important, is in itself, I would actually say, a huge feat to even have that as a priority. So when you're feeling like, oh, it's not what I want it to be, I think there's two ways we can feel that. I can feel my practice is not where I want it to be, and I am aware of that because I'm not well, right? Like that's the ultimate. I am not well in this moment. And that tells me that my practice is not happening in the way that I want it to happen. And that's a very real thing that I think we want to address that. We want to address that immediately. And I'll talk about that, how we would do that in a minute. But I think the other way that we feel we're falling short in our practice is a little bit contrived. It's I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, but I'm actually feeling open-hearted towards others. I'm being gentle with myself, with the exception of this little Jiminy Cricket in the background. Um, and that I would say it maybe push that aside. Like now, this is a time, and this is part of my practice, right? So it's not just formally sitting down on our cushion. In fact, not only is it not just that, that is a rehearsal, a dress rehearsal for what we do when we get up and engage with the world. So when we find ourselves showing up the way that we, hopefully our aspirations are higher than what we're able to do in a given moment, right? So we have that. But when we're showing up in a way that we're practicing, we feel like, okay, I'm representing those values that are important to me, that compassion, that generosity, morality, the perfections, to the best of my ability. When we're doing that and then we're judging ourselves for falling short, I think maybe a little gentle, it's okay. For right now, it's okay. My practice is manifesting in today. Today, when I am patient with those around me, when I am generous, when I am mindful of what is good and bad, good negative karma, good karma, when I have any awareness of that, all of those things, when those things are happening, then I think we can be really gentle with, I'm not doing my practice the way I need to. So I don't know if that really answers that question, but I'm saying mostly.
Nailed it.
Might have been the contrived one, right? Okay. The other one, though, sometimes we're not. And that is really when we know our practice is I hate to say failing, right? It's not where we want it to be. It's not helping us in the way. And I think then it's just about turning back to it and bringing that to mind. Like, wow, if I'm feeling really anxiety, or if I'm feeling anger, or if I'm feeling impatience, whatever that negative emotion is, just pausing and remembering cause and effect, and remembering impermanence. This came from something. I have an inkling of what it came from, something similar to the cause in myself. I want to be mindful about that moving forward, and just bringing those things to mind, and maybe doing a quick kind of 4 powers, like, okay, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling crappy, I'm suffering right now, so I know absolutely that had a cause, right? That's kind of the going for refuge. That is the foundation practice, right? Is that remembering, and then just make a decision to try to avoid that, do some kind of remedial action, right? And then rejoice, be happy that you caught it. And that alone can really shift the trajectory of your day and your mind, if that makes sense. I'm assuming everybody kind of knows what 4 powers are. Is that a safe assumption? Okay. Yeah. So I think, just do it. No, not a safe assumption. Okay. So the 4 opponent powers, they are a way. So there's some laws of karma, like how karma ripens. So it ripens as a well, and how we plant karma. So actually, let me go back. Um, we plant karma with our body, speech, and mind, and then karma ripens in various ways. So it can ripen as a situation or circumstance similar to the cause. It can ripen as a habit. It ripens as a rebirth, or like our environment, and it can ripen as just our entire world. So when we've taken on those actions, we've planted a seed. It absolutely. The other law of karma is that like cause, it will actually happen. So if you've got if you do an action, then a result will come for sure. Now, how big the result is, it depends. It depends on, just like a physical seed, how much are we watering it? How much attention are we giving it? Conversely, if we don't plant a seed, it absolutely cannot ripen. We can't get a watermelon if we haven't planted a watermelon seed. So these things are true. So we've got to get a result. And one of the things that helps karma to grow, sort of giving it like the sunshine and the water and the fertilizer, is actually being glad that we did it. So, like fully buying into the action that we've done. So 4 powers unravels that. So the first is, going for refuge, understanding these laws of karma, understanding to the best of our ability, right? Because we haven't seen it directly, but does it make sense to us? So I, understand. I take refuge in that fact. That's like the foundation. I believe in cause and effect, and then because I believe in cause and effect, I have regret. I know that I've done something negative. Now, the interesting thing is sometimes we're experiencing the cause, and we're not, and not sometimes, pretty much probably all the time. Whatever effect we're experiencing, the cause came prior. This is the problem, actually, with karma. Like, we are misconnecting dots all the time. This is why a person could think, if I steal, now I'm going to have, more money and be better off. Because in one moment they steal, and the next moment they've got extra cash, and they think that they make an intellectually causal link. They have an experiential causal link. That's how it appears. The problem is that's not how things really are. So, the fact that they're doing something negative, they are So it is a ripening. It's a habit, probably, from past actions that are similar to that. But now they've done it again. So they're planting more seeds, actually seeds for deprivation, to have things taken away from them. And then the benefit that they're experiencing isn't coming from having done that action. It's coming from past generosity. So this is really a huge pain in samsara, is that we are constantly misconnecting the dots and thinking, linking the incorrect causes to the results. So just like that, in the moment, I might be experiencing suffering that feels like it's, and I hate to say undeserved, because that implies some kind of value judgment, but it feels like it has nothing to do with me or any action that I've ever done sometimes, right? And that kind of suffering, we really have to really have refuge and some educated faith, some faith based on having been exposed to the teachings, having contemplated them, having had some experience of their truth. And then we can say, I don't know. I can't, it doesn't feel like anything I've done has caused this, but I know I must have created the causes for this. And then the second power is regret. And if we don't really, even intellectually, or have a feeling that we, as karmic actors, have created a situation, then having that regret is very, very difficult. So I think that in itself is a big practice. Like, just, it's an act of truth, an act of great faith, that, I must have created this. And this is probably the kind of thing it looked like, right? And from there we think something similar. And then karma grows. So that's, another law of karma, is that whatever you plant, it's going to be bigger. So when we have regret, it's the opposite of rejoicing. So instead of being fertilizer that feeds and grows that negativity, we've now doused it with, I don't know, poison, right? Gas, whatever it is that's going to help, diminish and potentially just kill that karmic seed of negativity. So that's what regret does for us. And then, if we really regret something, and all of these things really follow on. So if I have refuge, and real refuge in Buddhist teachings, then if I am experiencing something negative, then I can call up that regret and that feeling like whatever it is. And if we can think of something similar that we've done, even if it was 10 years ago, like, oh, that is similar, that kind of thing. I must have some habits like that in my mental continuum. I regret those actions, those actions. And regret is not self-flagellation or guilt. It's not, I'm a bad person, not at all. It's just practical. It's like if you went somewhere and they had, I don't know, beverages out, and you accidentally drank antifreeze, uh, you wouldn't think I'm a terrible person and I'm horrible, and you wouldn't you would just immediately, like, I regret that. That's terrible. That's a problem. I need to address it. And then you would do a remedy, right? So this is what we're talking about, immediately doing a remedy. So, whatever that looks like, something opposing that action of body, speech, or mind that is related to the suffering that we're experiencing. And, doing some kind of makeup thing. It could be formally, like doing Vajrasattva practice. It could also be, if you're feeling, I don't know, anger, then maybe, doing something to help bring peace to a situation. And then the last power is resolve. And so this kind of goes with remedy, because sometimes, we want to do a remedy and say I'm having a problem with a person. So I might decide that the remedy is going to be to extend myself to that person. But, things happen, and sometimes that person might not be receptive, or they might respond in a way that actually, causes you to be more upset, like, oh yeah, it was your fault. And so watching, things like apologies, whatever it is, this idea of knowing our own capability and having boundaries is important at every step of our practice. So when we decide a remedy that we're going to do, it has to be something that we can do like purely and without an expectation. And then we just resolve to like be mindful of that action, to try to diminish it. Sometimes we want to make these big resolutions. I'm not going to ever do X again. If we have lifetimes of habits of doing X, fat chance that we're just going to make a decision to never do it again. So it's important to be genuine and, um, make a resolve that you can really keep. Maybe one that's a stretch, maybe challenging to keep, but something that's doable, right? And then if you screw up, then do the 4 powers again. Do the 4 powers on that. So these are things that I would say, if we're, you know, this must be a Buddhist audience, right? Sometimes you're talking to people who are not Buddhists. And it's very hard to say, like, oh, when you're feeling like crap and when you're stressed out, go back and do 4 powers on what you did before, you know? Uh, but but this is a Buddhist audience. And I would say, gently, we can help, friends and family that aren't Buddhist when they're suffering. I think it's always important to, not I think, it is always important to be compassionate first, and not sounding judgmental. This is a class. So I can, I find myself, I should a lot. I should. We should, you should, I should. Um, it's a class. So we're talking about these ideas and ideals and values and things that we're going to fall short of, because we are not looking to be just a great person in samsara. We are going to fail until we're not failing. And again, I don't like that word, but I'm not going to be a Buddha until I'm a Buddha. And that's okay. That's how you become. That's how you change. Okay, so that was a big, long answer, probably more than you wanted. And I'm going to pause again for a minute before we go into like open awareness meditation, but opening it up. Comments? Yes, please.
Thank you for that. I am somewhat familiar with that practice. I'm just not very good at remembering names, titles, or powers, but I do understand comprehend concepts.
That's great.
But
Go ahead.
lastly, I wanted to say that this practice does extend beyond Buddhism into the path of the heart. And practicing loving kindness is for all beings that are just heart-centered. And there are many beings that are just spiritual and they're not religious, or they see Buddhism as a process more than a religion, for example. So I just want to extend that out. There are many people like in the Heart Math community, which I'm part of, Heart Math Institute, that teach this same type of process.
Totally. Yeah. I think anything that's true is universal, right? I think I was talking more about just this idea of, when you're trying to help someone, it can seem harsh if you say, try to purify. Yes, try to purify your negativity when you're feeling bad. Probably not how you would put it outside of a class, right? But still could be really helpful. But absolutely, you're right. Loving kindness, all of these things are very universal, and this is just, a Buddhist approach. But if it's not universal, then it's not true, right? So I think, kind of boiling down to those things that are true, and Lord Buddha was a teacher of those things, and that's kind of what we're striving for. I appreciate that. So thank you for the reminder, because it is really important. We don't have a corner on this. It's pretty universal. Okay, so let's do just a open awareness meditation, and this is no goal here. So some of our Buddhist meditations, we're specifically turning our mind towards a topic. In this case, we're I won't say emptying, but we're just going to be present and aware in our body. And when thoughts and feelings come, maybe we label them. I'm feeling excited, this a feeling, or maybe just feeling thought, and not kind of running with it. Or you could label the feeling or thought: excitement, annoyance, boredom, whatever those things are. So let's take a minute and kind of straighten our spine. I'm always horrified when I see the YouTube and I'm like, oh, my head is like this, like, oh gosh, I'm looking up, like, oh, my spine isn't straight, or it starts out like this and then I'm like this, or so, best we can. And like, relax your shoulders, soften your belly. Bring your awareness to your face. Try to release any tension. Just allow it to soften and open. Feel the heaviness of your eyes, the tingling sensations in your head. Soften your mouth. Just bringing your awareness to your face and your head. The sound of my voice or background sounds in the room. Notice the awareness of your ears. And then feel the weight of your shoulders, the spaciousness between them. Bring your awareness to your arms. Feel the weight and length of them. Soften your arms. Notice the feeling of life, vibration. Your hands, the feeling on your fingertips. Perhaps your fingers touching. Notice your skin, the feeling of sensation of clothing on your body, the temperature. your legs, making contact with the earth where you're sitting, the weight of them. The vibration, life. Your feet. Your chest. Maybe you can feel or hear your heart beating. Just fully embody your body. Release any tension. Let any thoughts or feelings just drift by. Maintaining just an awareness of them. Be the silence that's listening. The stillness, awareness. And now connecting with your heart again. Whatever wish or whatever feeling of well-being that you have, let's offer that to every living being. Just whatever resonates for you right now in this moment. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And come back into the room. So what I would say about that is I went too fast. But, in our own time and space to kind of just go through just coming into contact, really embodying our bodies. It sounds so basic and simple. But again, so often we're not present in mind, but we're often not present in body. There's Many teachers actually really kind of focus on this somatic sort of meditations. And it can be so helpful to get us in the present moment and then to expand ourselves. Again, especially in times of stress and when we have that feeling of wanting to contract and kind of maybe withdraw from the world, whether that's physically withdrawing or just sort of mentally withdrawing, taking the time to just be in our bodies, feel whatever it is that we're feeling, and connect with that is just incredibly helpful. So again, I would like to pause, just see if anyone has any thoughts or comments, or if this is a practice you're familiar with, already doing, or find helpful or not helpful. I don't know. Just a minute to engage if anyone wants to.
I just have a comment, Bonnie.
Please.
I thought the meditation was wonderful, and the subtle piano music in the back was fabulous for me. So whoever was doing that, thank you.
My 6-year-old granddaughter
Oh,
in the room.
makes it even better. Thank you.
I was hoping maybe they can't hear or just let it pass.
I thought it was wonderful.
I'm glad you did. Many years ago, thank you. Thank you. Many years ago, I was living at Land of Medicine Buddha, and, to keep the center open, we would rent to different groups. And I remember, we had this Sufi group in renting, and, they're doing all of this meditation, and for whatever reason, there was complete chaos in the kitchen, which is adjacent there to the gompa. So like pots and pans clinking, whatever. And, I had arranged this rental, so I was kind of horrified on behalf of them. They're our customers, whatever. So I went afterwards to, the retreat leader, and I was just apologizing. They were so wonderful. They're like, if it, that's part of the meditation. If it disturbed my meditation, then that's my mind, which I thought was a pretty, it's true. And it's also a kind of advanced way of seeing things, right? I think at least as beginners, it's really helpful. This is why we go like to, places that are secluded for retreat. They try to optimize the environment, right? And certainly for these people, I'm thinking they went to a retreat center to optimize the environment, and we've got pots and pans clinking. So thank you, Barbara. Thanks for that. Anyone else have any just comments or thoughts? Is anyone going through anything that they want to share, or anything that they're finding particularly challenging? And I know this might not be a great forum for that, but
I'll say something, even though I'm not turning my camera on. Hi, everyone. It's Danny. I had a
hey.
horrible Christmas. I don't practice Christianity. I thought, okay, well, I can just ignore this because I don't have family or anyone to force me to participate or anything. And I had a really horrible day.
Oh,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
I think I made it horrible because I was basically by myself. So this is great to come here and have this, and I thank you so much. I'm
Oh,
fine now.
thank you. Thank you so much. And, thank you for having the courage to share that. I think there's so much pressure on us to always be something that we're not always happy. We're in samsara. We are in suffering. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but that's the reality.
No,
Um,
I was bawling like a baby, and I never cry. And I don't know what my roommate who came home thought, and they took it okay. And I apologized afterwards, and it's okay now. But thank you for being here.
I virtual hug to you. It's interesting. I read something over the break. I can't remember if it was Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. Someone posted it was an excerpt of Lama Yeshe teaching in Italy, I think 1984, 1983, at Christmas time, and I think the reality is if we're Western, so I don't know, this is a virtual class, so we could be from anywhere, but, assuming that this is English speaking, so probably, come from some Judeo-Christian background, it can be, many of us are not following those traditions now because sometimes we just found something that resonated more with us. But sometimes there's been trauma or disappointment in other spiritual traditions. And so we're looking for something that fits us better. And he was kind of, honoring that, but at the same time, sort of saying, if I have, especially when I was a new Buddhist, like, oh my gosh, I would just debate all these things about, creator God or whatever. I would do the classic debates that are in the teachings, right? About, karma versus creator God, things like that. But in this teaching, he just focused on, what the teachings of Jesus were. And he's like, we don't have to be Christians to just kind of maybe appreciate that and appreciate the sort of inspiration to other people. And then he sort of, dislodged all of the classical arguments, and just was kind of honoring. And I think sometimes just making room for that, because otherwise there can be some sort of conflict in ourselves, like it's okay to have, and I'm not saying that you need to have it, but if it comes up, it's okay to practice something. I do Christmas, but it's not like a religious thing, but it's sort of like, oh, just a time to think about generosity, a time to try to extend myself. But again, that can be really painful. And so I think being willing to share how you felt and maybe why it was a struggle for you is really, really courageous. And then hopefully you're surrounded by people who can like appreciate and honor that. And at the same time, if there's, if don't feel that we need to necessarily as Buddhists give up other things that we enjoyed in the past, there's room for any kind of celebration that we're comfortable with. And then there's room to not celebrate if that's not where we are. So yeah, truly room for all. Anybody else want to, maybe I didn't speak to that well enough.
Could I make a comment to Danny?
Please.
So Danny, I also spent Christmas by myself, and I think that the way you were feeling, I think Christmas is a great distraction for those feelings. And I think that a lot of people have them at Christmas. And the more frantic that we can get with worshipping a tree and the color red and jingle bells, then the more we can be distracted from this suffering that we all are going through. And the fact that you went through that and you are acknowledging it and you saw it, I think it can give you a real advantage because you're able to see it for what it is. Whereas all the other people, not wanting to run anyone down, of course, but they might have the same issues as you, but they haven't had that advantage of being able to look at it because they got so distracted with the turkey and everything. So you could look at it as a wonderful gift that you were given, and then you can rejoice that you were given that gift, then dedicate the merit that you deserved. You somehow you created the karma to have this wonderful realization at Christmas, and you can dedicate that to the to take away the suffering of all sentient beings. So I think it's a matter of perspective. Truly, I really do, Danny. And I think you're brave, as Bonnie said, to mention it to us all. And you're brave to put yourself through it on Christmas. I mean, there are ways of getting around it somehow. So good on you. That's what I reckon.
I didn't say it better. I couldn't have said it better. So well done. Totally agree with that. Absolutely right on. This is samsara. This is not a pleasure grove. And you're so right. It's very easy to distract ourselves from that fact. It's very easy to fill our lives with busyness or superficial things. Real joy is beyond jingle bells, right? It is something deep within, and it does come from that feeling of compassion. And if we don't recognize our own suffering, so actually, just very fundamentally, if you talk about, three principal aspects of the path, the first is renunciation, and they follow on from each other. As a new Buddhist, I just wanted to have bodhicitta. And to your point, I think that's a little bit of a distraction. Like, I just want bodhicitta. Okay, that's great. But you can't, if I don't understand what my situation is, then I don't understand what everyone else's situation is. And how can I really have compassion for something that I don't understand? So first really does come that recognition of where we are, not a good place. And every moment that we are not enlightened, we are eligible for death, and we are eligible to take on another set of heaps. Maybe not the precious human rebirth, could be something else, right? So even all the suffering of humanity, there's other sufferings that are even more profound. So embracing that truth, that painful truth, is what can help us to awaken. And then once I'm aware of my own situation, which is truly that suffering. I mean, even the things that we call happiness in this realm are just the suffering of change, the suffering of impermanence, because it causes happiness in 1 minute, and then the minute you're separated from it, it causes unhappiness, right? You eat the delicious meal and then you're sick, or whatever it is. We're in this cycle. So recognizing that, being present with that truth is difficult, is brave. And then from there, if I can be compassionate with myself, then I know what that looks like to extend it to others. I think, I can speak from my own experience of the tendency to want to jump over, to want to ignore my suffering, and then, by extension, ignoring the suffering of others, even as I'm giving like a tacit compassion to it. And then certainly not being compassionate with myself. I think a lot of us, are judgmental of ourselves. So we have to be able to do those things, recognize our own situation, and then be kind to ourselves. So when we recognize it for ourselves, we recognize it for others. And when we're able to be gentle, Lama Yeshe, I used to have a thing on my desk. It was like, be gentle with yourself, then you can be gentle with others. Until we're gentle with ourselves, we cannot be gentle with others. Because think about where it comes from. If we're hard on ourselves, like, oh, I didn't have the Christmas spirit, or whatever it is. When we're hard on ourselves, we're actually ignoring the profound suffering that we have, and we're being callous to that. So it's part and parcel. It goes together. And then, the wisdom of emptiness ultimately, but also, cause and effect, which operate because of emptiness, right? Dependent arising. Those are the, if we boil everything down, those are the three key ingredients. So having the experience you have, and it's heartbreaking. But hopefully, you do feel some joy in having realized that, and being able to experience that, and then understanding what the suffering is like, imagining that, in a world of 8 billion humans, that's just this planet. That's just humans. Whatever we're feeling like, oh, countless beings are feeling that and so much more and worse at any given moment. And that, I think, and then there's something else that happens though when we really tap into that. There's also the gratitude of whatever blessing we have in the moment. So the gratitude of, I'm a human, I have this perfect human rebirth right now, and I actually have been exposed to some wisdom, and I'm seeing something for what it is. That, in a weird way, it's that can be happiness inducing, I would say, a kind of happiness, a kind of wellness. Maybe wellness is better. Happiness implies something else, perhaps. But just a profound wellness that I know what my situation is. I don't know. I'm assuming many of you are familiar with Venerable Rabina and her, like the work she's done with the Prison Project and working with prisoners. And, she has shared, and I've heard Lama Zopa Rinpoche say, those people in prison, they're really lucky because they know where they are. When you're in prison, and actually, strangely enough, I got a degree in criminal justice. So I went, on these field trips or whatever to see jails and things. And you would be amazed at the crafty things that they devised to, like, weapons and things to get out. So the mind that feels is aware that they're in a place of suffering, and they want to get out. They want to get out. It's an ever-present thought for them, and they devise things, to make that life better, but mostly to get out. And so, that's, we're in the same. We can distract ourselves. Maybe it's the turkey or the jingle bells or whatever, but we can distract ourselves from the fact that that's where we are. We're in a prison. Am I thinking 24/7 about getting out? No. Sometimes I think, oh, jingle bells, life is great. And that's not true. So the more we kind of wake up to just that truth, and it doesn't have to mean that we're downers. I mean, if you look at our teachers, if you look at the great examples of, and even other practitioners, they are able to maintain that awareness, but also they do have a joy. And I think that joyness comes from that inner wellness, that inner well-being that they have. I don't know. I don't have it. But to the extent that I have it, it works that way for me. Okay, so maybe I talk too much. Let's let's do a meditation on loving kindness. And you can close your eyes, or you can just sort of soften your gaze, whatever is comfortable for you. Have a straight back as much as you can. And let's start with ourselves. Let's think for a minute, what does loving kindness look like? It's that wish for well-being. And just gently give that to yourself. Imagine maybe giving yourself a hug or a smile. And wishing for yourself that well-being. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May I always have enough. May I be healthy. May I be nourished and nurtured. May I be loved. May I have peace. And whatever of those things we feel most lacking in, really wish that for ourselves. Really allow ourselves to feel worthy. And now bring to mind someone in our lives that is very dear, someone we care for. Send them that same loving kindness. Feel the warmth that's coming from them to you as well. May they have well-being. May they have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they have enough. May they have peace. May they be nurtured, nourished. May they be loved. Just love them for a minute. And now bring to mind a person who's challenging or difficult. We just talked about being in this realm of suffering. They're here too. They're also suffering. Whatever it is that makes them challenging or difficult, we can imagine it comes from the same place that would make us challenging or difficult. It comes from our suffering. Try to let go of any negative thoughts about them and just focus on their humanness. Allow your heart to open to them, just to wish them the very same thing. May they be well. May they have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they have enough. May they have health and be nourished and nurtured. May they be loved and have peace. And maybe just for a minute, imagine what it would look like if they had those things, if we had those things, if every living being had those things. Really feel the wish for that to come to pass. And maybe commit to the best of your ability to help to make those things happen in little incremental ways that gently stretch your capacity, but not too much. A little more kindness to yourself first, to those near and dear to you, and then always expanding further. And then dedicate just this small practice we've just done here, that these things will come to pass, that all beings will be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and they will know happiness and the causes of happiness. And then when you're ready, you can kind of rejoin the space. Maybe notice, I don't know, we do a meditation like this, and it feels different, like the room feels different afterwards for me. Just kind of notice that in your own heart and mind, like, is there a change? And yeah, so I'll open it up again just to see if anyone has any thoughts. Yeah, please, T.
I'm responding me again.
Good.
I wanted to thank you for that meditation. I particularly love any meditation that's centered around the heart. I find it helps me with my healing and just like releasing, heaviness. I was feeling some heaviness today. Trying to work with a community here locally that deal with a lot of suffering, a lot of feeling of separation, and I have a hard time reaching them because I strongly believe in oneness. It's not really a belief. I feel and sense oneness. So when it's not that, I kind of go, ah. But I really thank you for that meditation because it kind of helped me clear that a little bit, and I realize when we do this together that that vibration we're sending out to others. So thank you
So
for
true.
that service today.
So true. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. I mean, just consciously loving. Um, it's nice. And you can see, these things are they are nourishing to us. When we talk about difficult times and stress, these heart opening practices are, they are the ultimate armor. Compassion is the ultimate armor, the ultimate protection, really. Anybody else want to share or comment? Or I don't know. Again, I just want to create enough space for participation, but it's also okay to just be here. Okay. Oh, yes, Tony. Glad I didn't miss that. Sorry.
Oh no, I just did that. So thank you, Bonnie. Thanks everyone. As far as like to make a personal observation as far as the Buddha and Jesus are concerned. I mean,
Please.
first of all, of course, Buddha was never a Buddhist.
Yeah. You get in the way, right?
And Jesus was never a Christian. The for myself, however, the inseparable inseparability that I found within both of them is that the Buddha's teachings direct us to the clear light. Ultimately, I think that's what this practice is about. And as far as Jesus is concerned, Jesus in instructions and teachings bring us to the resurrection in the light. And therefore, I find them the same.
Thank you for that, Tony.
Without conflict.
You know, it's interesting. And we can get really hung up on words, but like, what does resurrection mean? You know, there's ways of, if we talk about, you know, arising as a Buddha, you know, and it's both transforming ourselves, but also in some way embracing where we are, and that connection to all living beings. You know, if as we practice, and I can say I have very limited experience, but some taste of this truth, that as I practice, I do see my world changing, and I do experience others as, I, I guess the word would be the divinity or the Buddha nature in others. And as we practice the path, it doesn't become harder to see any being as potentially being enlightened. You know, Buddha has countless nirmanakaya, that's emanation bodies. Any person that we're talking to, what is their ultimate nature? Well, their ultimate nature is Buddha nature. Their ultimate nature is emptiness. They can be functioning for us in that way if we're. It's like our receiver, right? Like a radio. Okay, I'm terrible with analogies, and they're always bad. But it's like if we tune in to the station, then we're able to get a certain message from them. And I had more like teachers like the ones that come in the nice red robes, and it's even initially like, oh, they better come from Tibet or Nepal or India or somewhere else. But over time, as we practice, I think also coming from a Judeo-Christian background, I started out being pretty darn dogmatic, which I probably human nature, a dogmatic Buddhist. In my mind, I was enough of a good Buddhist not to say what I thought, but in my mind, I didn't have a lot of respect for other spiritual traditions, especially the one I had just come from, right? So, but as I've practiced more and more, I'm like, oh, that is the same thing. Oh, they are saying the same thing. And just being able to receive that is so powerful, but we have to genuinely get there. But I think at some point, we'll look around and we'll say, oh, I'm surrounded by bodhisattvas. This irritating person, they functioned perfectly to show me my own mind, to show me what I needed to work on. Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, like problems, like like ice cream, transforming problems into happiness. And then if someone is the fodder for the problem that turns into happiness, then we can say, like, genuinely and honestly, they have brought me happiness. They have brought me blessings, right? So, and scripture is filled with, holy beings appearing as not holy, until we have the eyes to see, right? Until we have that Maitri, that loving kindness, that metta. But as we progress, hopefully we encounter more and more of that. So I appreciate that reflection and sharing on, your connection with Jesus. Yes, Lorna, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just want to pick up on Danny and Amanda's comments. I haven't celebrated Christmas in forever. I was a raving political activist in my earlier life and rejected all religion and everything and learned to cope with it in different ways. But I've since becoming a Buddhist about 10 years ago and really taking the advice of a lot of teachers is that whatever happens in our life or whatever we're feeling is to bring it into the Dharma. So I actually prepare my Christmas day as a retreat. And I create a Buddhist retreat for myself for the day, and I plan it out on what I'm going to read and the teachings I'm going to listen to, and the meditation, and go for a walk, and sort of plan my day out and make it my day to be with the Dharma. And I find that really, because it's all a state of mind, and the thing that really bothers me most about Christmas is just the crass commercialism of it that I really like to stay away from because I find it is a downer. And but to also appreciate what the Christian teachings also lend to that as well. But so that's how I kind of deal with Christmas Day on my own, is that I create my own retreat and I use it to be in the moment
That,
and bring it into the Dharma.
that's a very practical, like, lovely piece of, I don't know if it's advice or offering, but I think it's
Just a
lovely and it's
suggestion.
practical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very practical. Thank you. Thank you for adding that. So sometimes, yeah, I'm finding that which I always attribute to my talking too much, coming close to time. And I want to do one more meditation. I think many of you are familiar with Tonglen. Unfortunately, I'm going to maybe speed it up a little, but also, hopefully have enough there for you to get a feeling for the practice, especially if you're not familiar with it. And then in your own time, and there's tons of resources. It's a powerful meditation that's many teachings on. I'm sure that you can access if you want to go deeper, and you probably will if you haven't already. It's probably it not probably it's my favorite meditation, and Tonglen. It actually means taking and giving. We say giving and taking, but actually, first you have to take away the suffering. It's like if a small child, is out there riding their bike and they fall down and hurt themselves. Like, you wouldn't just go up and offer an ice cream cone, right? You would go and you would tend to the wound or the source of pain first. So in this practice, that's what we do. First, we focus on taking away the suffering. And then we focus on giving the ice cream, giving the happiness, giving the well-being after that. And then in the middle, or towards the end, I like to transition just as a reminder that the source of suffering for others is the same source of suffering for us. It is ultimately that ignorance and the actions of body, speech, and mind that are propelled by that, right? So in that sense, we're all the same. So if I want to destroy the cause of suffering for another living being, it is the same as that source of suffering for myself. So yeah, so it might be how I lead it might be a little bit different than some other presentations, but the essence is the same. So again, let's just sort of straighten our spines, either soften our gaze or close our eyes. And I would say, let's bring to mind, it could be anyone. You decide. Maybe it's yourself as the object of your meditation. Maybe it's someone close to you or someone you know is really suffering right now. Maybe you want to take this time to develop some open-heartedness towards someone who's a challenge. So pick someone to be your object of this meditation. And just take a few minutes to reflect on whatever it is that you know about them that you see as suffering, the sufferings that you're aware of. And as we said, sometimes the sufferings can look like bad behavior, right? They're angry, or they're impatient, or they're unkind. So just reflecting on the sufferings that you're aware of. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they're going through a financially difficult time or a challenging relationship. And now there's all the sufferings that you may not be aware of. They may not be obvious, but no matter who our object of meditation is, whether it's ourselves, a near and dear one, or a challenging person, all of us have been born in this realm of suffering. All of us have experienced or will experience sickness, separation from loved ones, including death, times of sadness and loneliness, physical pain, mental anguish. Every living being desire that we can't fulfill, craving and negative habits, feeling like we're not enough, low self-esteem, anxiety, fear, the whole range of mental negative feelings experienced by each and every sentient being, without exception. Aging, dying, sickness, not to mention potential negative rebirths. Just in this life, the suffering alone, unbearable, unbearable, too much. Allow yourself to feel overwhelming compassion for this person. Just feel it in your heart, in your body, in your mind, this wish, this heartfelt, genuine wish to be able to remove all that. Oh, to be able to free them from all that suffering. And then allow yourself to develop the wish to be able to take that away and commit to trying to do that right here and right now. And then using your breath, just imagine that their body is, all those negativities, all of that suffering is like black smoke. And it's filling their body, their hollow body, it's just filled with all that negativity. And then just imagine that with every in-breath, you're drawing that from them. And let it form in front of you like a rumbling storm cloud. So let's just take a few minutes to empty them of that with our breath. And now we have that raging, powerful, black storm cloud in front of our face. The power of it, we can feel all that negativity, all that suffering. Now let's just shift our focus for a minute to our own heart. And take just 1 minute to think of an action. It could be a thought or something you said or did. Some tiny little action that you know came out of your own ignorance, that cause of suffering. Same cause as theirs. Just imagine that little action like a tiny little compact BB at your heart, like iron, hard. And that's the cause of your suffering. It's that ignorance and selfishness that comes from ignorance. And so we're going to use the power of this rumbling cloud of suffering in front of us. And on our breath, we're going to, not yet, but we're going to draw that in. And we're going to use it to totally eliminate, like an atomic explosion in our hearts. We're going to use the power of all that suffering, and we're going to direct it right to our own ignorance and selfishness, and we're going to just obliterate it. And when we do that, you can imagine the light and the power that comes out of that explosion. So once that happens, that light and power of loving kindness, now that that ignorance has been eliminated and the selfishness, we're going to imagine radiating that out to that person and then beyond. So on the count of 3, inhale and bring that cloud of destruction to that seed of ignorance in your own heart and let them destroy each other completely. 1, 2, 3. Do you feel it? The light, the warmth, it's just radiating out of your body, coming from your heart. Imagine those beams of light first touching this person you've been meditating on and filling them with light and warmth and well-being and everything that would bring them true happiness. Imagine them feeling that happiness right now. That explosion so powerful goes beyond that person to all the people in your home, in your city, in your country, all the beings in the world. It radiates out beyond this world to countless planets. Just imagine on the rays of light that come from your heart that each being is being touched, purified, and invested in true happiness, love, compassion, wisdom. Feel that you are the source of this well-being. Rejoice in your own goodness. Rejoice in the goodness of others. Rejoice in the time we've spent here this morning. May all beings know happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings never be separated from pure bliss. May all beings be free from attachment and aversion. May I make it so, by myself alone, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say. I myself alone. And now, when you're ready, just again, gradually maintaining that feeling, but gradually coming back into this space. And hopefully with some sense of purpose. We're already a little bit over. I tried to build the dedication into the meditation practice in case anyone had to leave or has to leave. But I would like to just have a minute to open it up again. Anything at all? In that case, let's just sort of dedicate together. I thank you so much for this time. This has been really valuable time that we've all invested, independent of, crazily, independent of what might have happened during the time of this class. We all came here with a motivation, with an intention, with a desire to help ourselves evolve on the spiritual path and hopefully to help other living beings. So let's dedicate that these things come to fruition. Anyone that we know that is sick or suffering right now, dedicate towards the alleviation of that for them specifically. And then, of course, for the long lives of all of our teachers, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but anyone who's helping us on the path as teachers and also Sangha, fellow practitioners who are supporting us in our practice. May we all have long and healthy lives, be able to practice the Dharma, be able to achieve all the realizations of body, speech, and mind. Gewadi, Kewokun, Sonamyeshe Sososhin, Sonamyeshe Lejongwe, Dampa Kuni Topa Shog. By the goodness of what I've just done, May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus attain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Jangchub Samchub Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ki Gyuchi, Ke Pan Yang Pa Me Pa Yang, Gong Ne Gong Du Pelwa Sho. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. I thank you all. I wish you a happy new year, and may our practices be reflected ever so quickly in the outside world. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bonnie.